This video does not confirm or diagnose any medical condition. Any health-related references are purely alleged and discussed only as general commentary. Y'all, Hollywood is trembling right now, and it's not from a breakup, a diss track, or a leaked message. According to Jaguar Wright, the industry has been secretly shielding a tight circle of A-list men after what she describes as a reckless sequence of private choices connected to Teyana Taylor. During a tense live broadcast, Jaguar didn't hold back. She went straight for the names. She pointed directly at him and Shumpert, implying he was the first to sense that something was deeply off. Then she listed Drake, Chris Brown, Aaron Pierre, Kanye West, and, most shocking of all, Leonardo DiCaprio, all allegedly linked by the same invisible thread. Jaguar insisted this was never about love. IT was about music, danger, silence, and who gets shielded when everything collapses. She alleged that once certain private moments spiraled, Hollywood snapped into survival mode. Lawyers, music mobilized, NDAs locked in, publicists rewrote reality, and suddenly personalities shifted, nerves frayed, anxiety, music exploded, relationships vanished overnight without answers, fans noticed absences, projects stalled, and emotional meltdowns surfaced. But the truth, Jaguar says, never hit the headlines because it was never supposed to. According to her, anyone who appeared unstable afterward was deliberately dismissed, not because they were lying, but because the truth made them a threat. This isn't gossip. It's a warning shot from inside the industry, and Jaguar claims what she revealed is only the first fracture in a wall hiding something much bigger.
Fired her ex-husband. She made him the bad guy.
The divorce would have never even been out if he didn't file the motion to use our full and legal names.
Then she had to go and she had to get new energy. What was she calling him? Her apple pies? Have you seen my apple pies?
Did you see my apple pie?
Oh my God, you did a love scene with Leonardo DiCaprio.
How was it shooting those scenes with Leo?
It was just work.
Buckle up, because behind the flawless smiles and camera flashes, Hollywood has always mastered the art of hiding wounds instead of healing them. What happened during Jaguar Wright's live wasn't a meltdown. It wasn't confusion. It was intentional, measured. The kind of pacing used by someone who knows the cost of every word and understands exactly why the truth stayed buried this long. She didn't start with spectacle. She started with silence. Music, the kind of silence that only exists when powerful people make a pact not to speak. According to Jaguar, that silence saved careers while leaving others to quietly fall apart. She alleged that for years, a disturbing pattern moved in whispers through the industry, centered around Teyana Taylor and a string of high-profile men whose influence stretched across music, sports, and film. Jaguar framed it as a story of exposure, not romance. Choices made behind closed doors that carried consequences far heavier than emotions. Consequences that, according to her, were never fully explained to everyone involved. And when questions finally surfaced, the response wasn't honesty. It was containment. She alleged that Shumpert was one of the first to feel that something wasn't right. Not with a public outburst, not with headlines, but in ways only those close to him noticed later. Changes in tone, guarded conversations, and music distance where trust once lived. According to Jaguar, that moment wasn't an exception. It was the beginning of a pattern. As time passed, more names drifted into the story. Drake, Chris Brown, Aaron Pierre, Kanye West. Each name didn't bring accusations, but wait, because their presence suggested they were tied to the same hidden chain of undisclosed risk and enforced silence. Then came the name that froze the room. Leonardo DiCaprio. Jaguar didn't accuse him outright. She didn't have to. The implication alone was enough to make listeners grasp how vast the alleged network could be. According to Jaguar, once private alarms went off, Hollywood reacted exactly as it always does. Lawyers were consulted before conversations began. Publicists wrote narratives before emotions were felt. Non-disclosure agreements became shields, music, not protection. She claimed there were records, messages, and confirmations from insiders. Never leaked, music never public, but locked away where only a few could reach them. She alleged that these hidden pieces explained a series of moments fans had questioned for years. Music, relationships ending without warning, projects quietly postponed, artists and actors disappearing under the vague excuse of personal matters. According to her, those reasons were never personal. Music, they were calculated. Jaguar spent time focusing on Aaron Pierre, describing him as emotionally unarmored for the environment he walked into. She alleged music that after certain relationships ended, his energy shifted in ways heartbreak alone couldn't explain. Confusion, anxiety, emotional attachment. The kind of inner fracture that comes from realizing you were part of something far bigger than you ever consented to. She suggested this wasn't weakness. Music was a signal. According to Jaguar, when people show visible distress after situations like these, the industry doesn't offer clarity. It removes them. Their stability is quietly questioned. Their emotions become a liability. Not publicly, but through whispers that slowly erase credibility. She claimed the same quiet separation happened to Amon Shumpert. No scandal. No headlines. Just a gradual cooling. Invitations stopped. Energy shifted. Doors closed. To the outside world, it looked like normal relationship fallout. According to Jaguar, it was something else entirely. She described a silent system built for containment. Private meetings. Carefully chosen advice from insiders who never left a paper trail. Reputation managers, moving in sync with legal teams. The goal, she alleged, was never accountability. It was containment. Music, containment of fear. Containment of exposure. Containment of questions no one dared ask out loud. Jaguar claimed Teyana Taylor stayed in constant motion during this period. Work, music, calendars overloaded, flights nonstop, appearances stacked one after another. According to her, stillness invites attention and movement creates noise. Noise, music distracts. Noise protects. Relationships ended without warning. No closure. No explanations. Just absence. When murmurs began to leak online, they vanished as fast as they appeared. Blogs stalled. Journalists hesitated. Stories entered legal limbo and never came back out. Jaguar alleged that access itself became a weapon. Speak up and you lose your seat. Push harder and you're crushed beneath credibility attacks. She claimed collaborators and peripheral figures were quietly warned to step back. Music, not because they were guilty, but because closeness alone became hazardous. According to her, this was never about morality or emotion. It was about control. Throughout her session, Jaguar made one thing unmistakably clear. Music, she said she wasn't speaking to burn careers. She was speaking because people were left emotionally shattered while the machine kept running flawlessly around them. According to her, silence crossed a line from strategy into something unethical. Music, she described it as a systemic collapse, an industry that treats human fallout as collateral damage as long as the brand survives, where trust is music quietly traded away so the illusion can stay intact. As her live session moved toward its end, music, Jaguar didn't threaten anyone. She warned them. She said more names exist. More documentation exists. More connections exist. What the public has seen so far, music, she implied, is only the outer shell of something far larger. Hollywood isn't facing a rumor problem. It's facing a trust crisis. And the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones that destroy careers. They're the ones that follow people home and rewrite their lives in silence. What she revealed didn't end when the live stream went dark. Because, according to Jaguar Wright, the most disturbing part of the story was never what was spoken. It was what everyone already knew and chose not to confront. She described how once the first concerns surfaced behind closed doors, the industry didn't panic. It synchronized. Phone calls replaced text messages. Meetings happened without calendars. Guidance was delivered verbally, never recorded. According to her, this wasn't about reacting to scandal. It was about activating a familiar playbook designed for moments when exposure threatens power. She alleged that certain individuals were quietly encouraged to step away, music, just long enough to recalibrate their image and disappear until narratives could be rewritten. When questions came, answers were preloaded. Creative burnout, emotional exhaustion, scheduling conflicts, simple stories to cover complicated truths. And the people at the center of it all kept moving. Music, Jaguar claimed Teyana Taylor never slowed down during the most sensitive stretch. Projects overlapped. Appearances stayed flawless. The image never cracked. According to Jaguar, movement wasn't ambition. It was defense. Stillness invites inspection. Momentum drowns it out. Behind the scenes, she alleged others were carrying something much heavier. She returned again to Aaron Pierre, suggesting that what fans saw as mood shifts or distance was something, music, deeper. Confusion, without context. Anxiety, without answers. The kind of emotional pressure that comes from being told not to ask questions and obeying anyway. Jaguar claimed that when people voiced discomfort, they weren't given truth. They were managed. Their reactions were labeled instability. Music, their concerns dismissed as overreaction. According to her, this narrative served a very specific purpose. Once someone is labeled unstable, their voice loses music force. She alleged this quiet erasure happened again and again. Not through loud music scandals, but through soft disappearances. Calls unanswered. Emails delayed. Music opportunities that simply stopped arriving. Nothing obvious enough to confront, just enough to leave someone standing alone. She suggested the same slow fade surrounded Amon Shumpert. No allegations. No public drama. Just a careful withdrawal from spaces where questions might grow too loud. To fans, it looked like a personal reset. Music. Jaguar implied it was something far more calculated, a perimeter being built. According to her, that perimeter reached beyond relationships. Collaborators were subtly warned. Associates told to keep conversations shallow. Anyone too close became a variable to manage. She alleged that Drake and Chris Brown surfaced in the story not because of public controversy, but because of private intersections. Intersections that, according to Jaguar, were never meant to exist in the light. She stressed that the issue wasn't individual actions. It was the silence that followed them. And then there was Kanye West. Jaguar suggested that when someone already marked as unpredictable enters situations like these, the industry response hardens. Not to protect the person, but to protect the system. According to her, unpredictability disrupts controlled narratives, and controlled narratives are the foundation of reputation survival. She implied this is why certain voices are amplified while others are erased. Why some breakdowns become public entertainment while others are quietly escorted away. It isn't about truth. It's about containment. As she went on, Jaguar pulled the lens back from individuals to the machinery itself. She described an unspoken chain of crisis command. First come the lawyers, then the publicists, then the reputation engineers. Only after the story is stabilized do emotions even enter the room, if they're allowed in at all. According to her, non-disclosure agreements aren't just legal contracts. They're psychological traps. They don't only silence people, they isolate them. Once signed, individuals are left alone with experiences they're forbidden to share, music, even with the people they trust most. She claimed this isolation was the most dangerous result of all. Music, because when people can't speak, they turn inward. And when they turn inward, they break. Jaguar alleged journalists sensed something was wrong long before the public caught on. Tips arrived. Questions, music, were written. But stories stalled. Editors froze. Legal teams stepped in. According to her, access was music, quietly weaponized, pushed too hard, and doors closed forever. Blogs went dark. Investigations collapsed. The internet, usually addicted to chaos, strangely moved on. She Music suggested this wasn't coincidence. It was pressure. As whispers spilled onto social media, fans began noticing patterns that refused to align. Breakups with no explanations. Projects, music, postponed indefinitely. Public figures vanishing right when their careers should have peaked. Music, Jaguar claimed these weren't random moments. They were symptoms. Symptoms of a system that chooses continuity over accountability every time. She made it clear this wasn't about demonizing one woman or excusing powerful men. It was about exposing how quickly human lives are reduced to background noise when they threaten profitable illusions. According to her, some people were quietly pushed toward private counseling while being clearly or subtly instructed to keep their mouths shut. Not because speaking would be wrong, but because speaking would be disruptive. She described that silence as pressure disguised as protection. As the live continued, the tone shifted from exposing to cautioning. She said what she revealed was only the outer layer, that the names mentioned were threads in a much wider web. That proof didn't live only in messages, but in patterns of behavior, altered timelines, and abrupt changes the public brushed off as coincidence. She warned that when silence becomes a rule, harm spreads unseen. Near the end, Jaguar confronted the backlash she knew was coming. She acknowledged she would be labeled bitter, unstable, hungry for attention. She said the label was predictable and useful because when truth comes from someone already dismissed, it's easy to ignore. But she insisted that ignoring the story wouldn't erase it. She said the industry was already feeling the shift, not in public statements but behind closed doors. Trust had cracked. Conversations had changed. People were watching each other differently now. According to her, once secrecy is named, it loses its grip. She closed with words that felt less like an ending and more like a door opening. She said this was never about destroying careers. It was about confronting a culture that treats people as disposable once they stop being useful. A culture where silence is rewarded and honesty is punished. She warned that more would surface, not because she wanted it to, but because systems built on secrecy eventually collapse. Hollywood, she said, is entering a phase it can't fully control. And the deepest damage won't come from headlines or cancellations. It will come from the realization that trust was traded away long before anyone was told the truth. And once that understanding settles in, no amount of image repair can restore what was lost. That realization didn't disappear when the stream ended. It lingered. According to Jaguar Wright, once silence cracks, it doesn't explode. It seeps into behavior, into timing, into choices that suddenly stop making sense. She suggested that what people were witnessing afterward wasn't backlash. It was recalibration. She described how, in the days that followed, conversations across the industry shifted tone. Meetings shortened. Language tightened. Long-standing alliances felt tense. Not because anyone had been accused publicly, but because everyone understood what it meant to be named inside a system that survives on denial. Jaguar implied the response was immediate but invisible. No press releases. No denials. No court filings meant for cameras. Instead, internal warnings, strategic withdrawal, a tightening of circles. According to her, this is how power defends itself when structure, not image, is at risk. She returned again to proximity, how standing near a story like this can be as dangerous as being inside it. She alleged that some collaborators quietly stepped away from projects without explanation. Others declined appearances. Invitations went unanswered. It wasn't panic. It was calculation. She described this moment as a loyalty test. Who stays silent? Who asks questions? Who becomes inconvenient? According to Jaguar, this is where reputations are truly shaped, not on stages or screens, but behind closed doors where access becomes currency. She suggested some people chose safety over truth, while others were quietly abandoned for hesitating too long. She returned again to Teyana Taylor, not as a villain, but as a symbol of how quickly narratives are defended when money is involved. She alleged the image never cracked because the machinery around it never failed. Every appearance was calculated, every absence accounted for, every question rerouted. According to her, this wasn't luck. It was practice. She claimed those on the edges felt the impact most. People without powerful teams to shield them, people who couldn't afford to be misread. When they hesitated, it was labeled instability. When they pulled back, it became unreliability. She circled back to Aaron Pierre, suggesting that what looked like a quiet retreat was actually survival. According to her, existing in an environment where silence is encouraged requires constant self-censorship. Every sentence becomes a calculation. Every pause becomes intentional. She described this not as collapse, but erosion. Slow, invisible, confidence draining into caution, curiosity replaced by compliance. Jaguar argued this is how systems hold power without force. You don't silence people outright, you make truth too expensive to speak. She suggested Amon Shumpert and others felt versions of the same pressure. No threats, no ultimatums, just a shared understanding that standing too close to certain questions could shrink your future. According to her, most people don't need to be warned. They only need to watch what happens to those who aren't careful. She expanded the lens to the media itself. She alleged journalists felt the weight of the story, but also the risk. Sources went quiet. Editors demanded confirmations that could never be quoted. Legal teams flagged concerns, not about accuracy, but about exposure. She described how stories die in silence, not because they're false, but because permission is never granted. According to Jaguar, the public often assumes silence means nothing happened. She argued the opposite. Silence, she said, usually means too much happened out of sight. While social media tore through surface-level drama, she claimed the deeper story remained untouched by design. Fans debated timelines, motives, personalities, all while the real issue stayed hidden because it was never meant to be seen. She described this misdirection as deliberate. Give people a smaller war to fight, and they won't notice what's being protected. She alleged that Drake, Chris Brown, and Kanye West entered the narrative not through scandals, but through shared silence. According to her, when powerful figures avoid the same subject, it's rarely coincidence. She avoided assigning guilt. Instead, she emphasized responsibility. Responsibility of systems that choose continuity over clarity. She spoke about contracts meant to protect brands that end up isolating people, advice that sounds supportive but ultimately discourages honesty, and how quickly concern becomes control when profit is on the line. Jaguar argued this is why trust erodes quietly, not because people are lied to directly, but because they're never given enough truth to protect themselves. Emotionally, she suggested the industry made one fatal miscalculation: memory. Fans remember who vanished. Audiences remember contradictions. Patterns outlive press cycles. According to her, once people begin connecting the dots, containment weakens. Not instantly, but dangerously. She warned that the next phase wouldn't be loud. It would be layered. Small confirmations, subtle shifts, unscripted moments that don't match the official story. She framed this not as a threat, but as inevitability. Systems built on silence eventually collapse under their own contradictions. As she approached her closing, Jaguar acknowledged the personal cost of speaking. She said she expected the attacks, the character assassinations, the questions about motive. She welcomed them. According to her, it's easier to destroy the messenger than to confront the message. But she insisted this story was never hers alone. It belonged to the people left confused, the people quietly pushed aside, the people told to move on without ever being told why. She described this moment as a reckoning powered not by outrage, but by exhaustion. Exhaustion from watching truth diluted by legal language until it no longer resembles reality. She said the industry had a chance to choose transparency early. It didn't. And now the price is higher. She ended with a reminder, not a warning. That fame doesn't erase consequences. That silence doesn't erase memory. That control doesn't erase impact. According to Jaguar, what happens next won't be decided by headlines or hashtags. It will be decided by whether people continue to accept partial truths as full explanations. And once that acceptance ends, the structure built on it begins to weaken. Not all at once, but enough to change everything that follows. And this is where the story stops being entertainment and starts becoming a warning. Because what you've just heard isn't about fame, or messy relationships, or who betrayed, who behind closed doors. It's about what happens when trust is treated like a disposable resource and silence is rewarded more than truth. It's about how easily people can be managed, redirected, and emotionally discarded. When protecting an image becomes more important than protecting human beings, a faceless system did exactly what it was built to do. It absorbed the shock. It redirected attention. It isolated the damage. And it kept moving as if nothing had happened. But the people caught inside it didn't move on so easily. They were left with unanswered questions, broken connections, and a reality no press release could ever explain. This is the kind of betrayal that doesn't explode. It lingers. It rewires how people trust, how they love, how they speak, and how they stay silent. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Stories like this don't survive because they're shocking. They survive because they're familiar. Because we've watched this pattern repeat with new faces, new headlines, and the same ending. Silence wins. And truth pays the price. But silence only works when people stop looking. So if this story made you uncomfortable, that's intentional. If it made you angry, confused, or unsettled, that's because it wasn't meant to feel safe. And if you're still here listening, it's because part of you knows there's more beneath the surface than what's been allowed to show. This isn't the end. It's a pause. Because more details exist. More connections exist. And once trust breaks at this level, it never fully heals. If you're ready to keep watching what they'd rather stay hidden, stay right here, subscribe, stay alert, and don't look away, because the truth only disappears when everyone agrees to stop seeing it.